Tim Duncan, the greatest power forward to ever step foot on an NBA court. A player who built his legacy not on flash, but on consistency. He was the master of fundamentals, an unstoppable force in the low post, and one of the greatest defensive anchors ever. But what were the specific skills, the simple yet effective tools that allowed Tim Duncan to construct one of the most decorated and respected legacies in NBA history? These are the skills of Tim Duncan. Explained. Unlike many stars who rushed to the pros, Tim Duncan spent 4 years refining his skills at Wake Forest University. From 1993 to 1997, he led the Demon Deacons to 4 straight NCAA tournament appearances, racking up countless awards, including the 1997 National Player of the Year award in Duncan's senior year. By the time he declared for the draft, Duncan wasn't just a top prospect, he was the prospect. A can't-miss talent that NBA teams were willing to lose games for just to have a shot at drafting him. And in a twist of fate, it was an injury to Spurs legend David Robinson that put San Antonio in the perfect position to join the tanking race. Their roster wasn't bad, but they saw an opportunity to sacrifice the present for a future built around Duncan. And when the lottery results came in, that gamble paid off. With the first pick in the 1997 NBA draft, the San Antonio Spurs selected Tim Duncan, a decision that would alter the course of the franchise forever. Tim Duncan's career can be neatly divided into 2 distinct eras: young MVP Timmy and old man Riverwalk. Young Tim Duncan possessed surprising quickness and athleticism, and filled up stat sheets with his versatility that would surprise many fans who didn't see him in his youth. Old man Riverwalk, while losing some of that athleticism, compensated for that with unparalleled basketball IQ and steadfast consistency for his team. Yet, throughout both eras, one constant remained: Timmy D's absolute dominance in the low post. In a league filled with highlight reel dunks and flashy plays, Duncan embraced the fundamentals of basketball at a level few could ever match. A 6'6" player with great fundamentals might blend into the crowd in the NBA, but a 6'11" player with such grounded skills, that's a direct path to basketball immortality. His face-up game on the block was deceptively simple, yet unstoppable. Defenders knew what was coming, but it didn't matter. Duncan had 2 signature moves he could always go to based on what look his defender gave him. His patented bank shot that he could hit over the top of any opposition. And then, the perfect counter, simply driving right past them as soon as they overcommitted to contesting that lethal bank shot. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't complicated, but it worked. And that's all that mattered for the big fundamental. What made Duncan's jumper nearly impossible to contest was his unorthodox form. While most players keep their elbows bent when they shoot, Duncan would fully extend his arm, releasing the ball from a height much harder for any defender to get their hands on. And when he attacked the rim for his counter, he'd raise the ball high above his head in what was called the Statue of Liberty finish. In the 2003 NBA season, Duncan was at his absolute apex. He put up regular season numbers that only the legendary Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had matched before him, and no one has matched since. But what makes a superstar in the NBA is their ability to elevate their game in the playoffs, and Duncan would do that and then some, dropping nearly 25 points, over 15 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 blocks per game, all increases over his MVP regular season. It was as if he was sending a message to the entire league. He may have played in a smaller market, and he may have carried himself with quiet humility, but make no mistake, Tim Duncan was the best player in the world at this point in time. And then, in the NBA Finals, he cemented that claim with a masterclass in basketball that would silence any remaining doubt. He completely controlled the New Jersey Nets, averaging an outrageous 24 points, 17 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5 blocks per game. But then came Game 6, the moment he delivered the finishing blow, a performance so complete that it nearly made history. 21 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists, and 8 blocks. Duncan was just 2 blocks shy of the first quadruple-double in not just NBA Finals history, but in any playoff game, period. It was a true coup de grace, and arguably the greatest closeout game the NBA Finals has ever seen. This was young Tim Duncan at the top of his game and the top of the basketball world. Tim Duncan isn't just one of the greatest power forwards of all time, he's specifically one of the greatest interior defenders the game has ever seen. He holds the record for the most all-defensive team selections with 15. He has blocked more shots in the playoffs than anyone in NBA history, swatting away 568 shots. And for nearly 2 decades, he anchored some of the most suffocating defenses the game had to offer. Again, Duncan's brilliance as an inside force wasn't built on athleticism, but it was rooted in the same fundamentals that defined his entire career: constant communication with his teammates, elite positioning, and an uncanny ability to read the game as it happened on the floor. This knowledge and attention to detail allowed him to remain an elite defender even into his late 30s, when most players can no longer consistently protect the rim. Even at the advanced age of 36, when many are relegated to veteran roles, Duncan averaged a remarkable 2.7 blocks per game, a feat unmatched by any player at that stage of their career defensively. Beyond his statistical consistency, Duncan's leadership was special. Unlike fiery competitors like Kobe Bryant, who thrived on intensity and occasional confrontation, Duncan led in a different way. He never raised his voice, never taunted, never allowed the chaos of the game to disrupt his composure. And by doing this, Duncan allowed his teammates to follow his lead and play free of stress on the floor. One former Spur put it best: imagine the best guy in the league, who doesn't argue with the coach, takes the same punishment as everyone else, and works harder than you in every practice. That was Tim Duncan. It became the Spurs culture, and all that came with it was winning. In Duncan's 19 seasons, the Spurs were a constant threat in the Western Conference, as they always won 50 games or more. The lone exception, the lockout-shortened 1999 season, where the Spurs still won the championship. Year after year, through roster changes, aging teammates, and shifting eras, there was only one constant: Tim Duncan. His consistency, his durability, his leadership, these weren't just Duncan's skills, they were guarantees. It didn't matter who was around him. Duncan was the bedrock, the foundation upon which a dynasty was built. As old man Riverwalk aged, he could no longer carry the Spurs night in and night out the way he once did. The scoring load shifted to younger stars, and Tim's role evolved, but never lost importance. Yet, even in the twilight of his career, when the stakes were highest and San Antonio needed their hero, Duncan could magically summon echoes of his prime, delivering vintage performances when the Spurs truly needed them most. For example, take Game 6 of the 2013 NBA Finals. Most people remember it for Ray Allen's legendary three-pointer, the shot that saved Miami's season, LeBron's legacy, and changed NBA history entirely. But that game could have just as easily been known as the Tim Duncan game. At 37 years old, he sensed the moment and knew Game 6 was the Spurs' chance to upset LeBron James and the vaunted Miami Heat, and he played like a man who refused to let that opportunity slip away. Duncan dropped 25 points and 8 rebounds in the first half alone, finishing with 30 points and 17 boards on the night. And yet, when the most crucial moment of the game arrived, when Miami had one last chance to force overtime, Duncan wasn't on the floor. He was on the bench, watching, and as history would have it, that's when Ray Allen hit his famous shot after Chris Bosh grabbed an offensive rebound. Had Duncan been out there? Had he been in position to stop Bosh from getting that crucial rebound? Does that iconic moment ever happen? Does Duncan finish his NBA career with the almighty benchmark of 6 NBA Finals rings? We'll never know. But what we do know is that even in the twilight of his career, when everything was on the line, Tim Duncan was still capable of delivering greatness. 5 NBA championships, back-to-back league MVPs, 3 finals MVPs, and the greatest power forward to ever play the game. Tim Duncan's skill set wasn't built on hype. It was built on execution. His dominance wasn't flashy. It was methodical and inevitable. He wasn't just great, he was a blueprint for how the game of basketball should be played. He was a force of nature, a silent assassin, and a champion who redefined the power forward position.